Many of us know that the federal government is outdated. It's outdated with the hiring process. It's outdated with the pay structure. It's outdated when it comes to rewarding employees. But what can be done about it? Let's talk about the hiring process first. It is too convoluted, too complex for a lot of people to even understand. So you have high talented individuals that might entertain the possibility of getting into the government. They're turned off completely by the way the federal hiring process is structured. For one thing, you can spend an hour on a job announcement and be the best qualified candidate, but you forget to attach one document. Let's say it's the transcripts. You forget to attach your transcripts. Instead of HR coming back to you asking for the transcripts, or maybe a computer automated function that asks you for the transcripts, instead you're found ineligible. You cannot submit it. You're not going to be competing for that job announcement any longer. Second, assumptions cannot be made. You cannot assume that because someone's an office manager, they know how to use Outlook, or they know how to use Excel, or they know how to use a stapler. So in the private sector, a lot of times human resources can draw and make assumptions based on your past experience. But the federal government oftentimes wants you to spell out every single bit of experience that's relevant to that job position. And then they take forever to actually review and make a decision on your application. We're talking at the minimum 2, 3, 4 weeks, or even months. It can take up to a year, and they still have not made a decision on your application. Or if they have, they haven't informed you. Moving on to inflexible pay, we have people coming out of college with high value degrees. I'm talking about tech, law, medicine. They have a high value skill set. And what are we offering them in the government? What are we offering them? We're offering GS6, GS7, maybe GS9 if they have a master's degree. But you have the private sector out there offering 6 figures. They're luring them in with high salary and compensation. And sometimes they even get stock options. The government cannot compare to that. So they're missing out on extremely talented individuals. The top students in law, medicine, and technology are simply not willing to take a 60%, 70% pay cut just to get into the public sector. They're not willing to do that. And even the more senior individuals, if you look at executives, look at the federal government, senior executives, and compare that with the private sector. On the senior executive side for the government, we're looking at 200,000, 230, 240,000. And you have some private executives and companies that make over $1 million, easy, 10 million in some companies. So you really can't compare the two. And let's say you make it into the government and you're happy with your salary. Your end of year performance bonus comes in and the rewards are not consistent. So you have a team of 4 or 5 people. Obviously some people are performing higher than others, but everyone gets the same award. So it's almost like there's a blanket policy where it doesn't really matter how you've been performing. You're just going to get what everyone else gets. The poor performers don't mind this, of course, but it's the high performer that's looking at everyone else saying, why did I give so much effort? If, Billy Bob over here, he did half of the work I did, but we're receiving the same performance bonus. I mean, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Then you have people that come in late, right? So in a regular job, depending on where you work, if you are habitually late, you will be laid off, you will be fired. Now, in the government, there are some people that show up and you're like, what's going on? Everyone knows that Sally here is supposed to be here at 9 a.m. and she keeps coming in at 10, 10:30, 10:45. What's going on with Sally? But no one says anything. It depends on your supervisor. It depends on the situation. But oftentimes, nobody says anything. Sally just comes in whenever Sally wants, and there are no repercussions. And they often say that the worst thing that you can do for team morale is you can let the poor performers just keep on getting by. There's no discipline for the poor performers. You just tolerate it. That will demoralize a high performer on your team. The majority of people I encounter who work a government job either received it one or two ways. The first way is someone in their family worked in the government. That's how they were aware of the opportunity, and they were kind of guided in through the hiring process to get their current role. The other way is a lot of times they have a friend or acquaintance that shared their resume, kind of guided them through much of the same way that someone does with a family member. They helped him get into the government. Now, that is not the best way in order to attract and retain talent. You do not want to rely on nepotism in order to have an effective organization. So if the federal hiring process could be simplified and people clearly understand what they need to do in order to be competitive and actually get a government job, that has everyone's best interest in mind. Oftentimes it seems like the government hiring process is not necessarily competitive to attract the right talent. It's just attracting the people that know how to get around human resources. They know the tricks and the tips in order to circumvent certain processes to get that government job. And what happens when we do not have the right people in the right positions in the government is everything suffers. Everything becomes ineffective. It moves slower. You think it moved slow 10, 15, 20 years ago. If you keep having the wrong people there, it will continue to move slower because there is no incentive. And that is one of the reasons it's so important to have the right people. Also, the wages, the salaries, it's all coming from taxpayers. So the taxpayers, everyone in this country that has to pay federal tax, it is owed to them to make sure that the best people are in the right positions. But not everybody feels this way. A lot of times politics gets in the way. For some people, to have a difficult system to navigate, what that equates is job security. They feel like no one's going to compete with me because it's so hard to jump through all the hoops and hurdles to actually get a government job. They're secure. Thankfully, we have some work groups, such as National Academy of Public Administration, that are identifying and targeting some of the main problems that are affecting the federal government. But they did the same study 4 or 5 years ago, and nothing has changed. Pretty much nothing has changed after this huge publication came out addressing 5 major challenges the government was dealing with. But maybe this time will be different. I don't know about you, but for me, let's say 2 or 3 decades go by, 3 or 4 decades go by, I wouldn't be surprised if the government is still functioning the same way. And changes have not been made in order to make the process more transparent, more easy to digest. Now, if you have been searching for a better job, maybe a government job, but you haven't been having any success lately, it's demoralizing out there. I understand that. If you want to know when is the best time that you should stop your job search, if that interests you, then I want you to watch this video next. If you would like to see more videos like this, please click like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.